Hey everyone, it's Sevi. Genshin Impact's Luna versions have been straight up delivering when it comes to their Archon quests. Many players, including myself, have found Nod Krai to be one of, if not the most satisfying main chapter of the Archon quest thanks to its lore relevance, writing, and even its much improved story presentation. Everyone who was still playing Genshin and following its Nod Krai arc had high hopes for the main arc's finale, which came in Act 7 and 8 of version Luna IV. Though I've seen a few select and valid criticisms towards the ending, the online consensus is that this is the best finale that Genshin has ever delivered. I'm not here to refute that, but I personally think that it was one specific plot decision that tied everything together in a surprisingly clean yet mind-blowing way, and that is their Interstellar Impact. But before that, I gotta pay some bills. If you'd like some discounts for your next Genshin top-up, well, congrats, because I'm about to tell you exactly how. LD Shop is a game top-up site that you can use for your Genesis Crystals or your Welkin Moons, and all you need is your server and your Genshin UID. And you can actually activate your first top-up bonus through LD Shop if you haven't claimed that bonus yet. Topping up with LD Shop is really straightforward. Just enter your server, your UID, click a few buttons, and choose your payment method. And personally, I was really happy to see several e-wallet options for those of us here in the Philippines. And once payment is done, ta-da, it shows up in-game as it should. It's simple, it's convenient, and there's discounts. If you register on LD Shop with my link, you'll get a 5% off coupon, saving up to a maximum of $30. Also, you can claim a free Welkin Moon if you spend over $80 within a month on LD Shop. Congrats, big spender. I hope you got your 5-star with that one. Anyway, if you're into all that, then just click my link in the description to register and claim those discounts, and hopefully make your next emergency top-up a little less painful. Thank you, LD Shop, for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to it. If you've watched Interstellar, then you probably picked up pretty quickly what the heck was going on with Columbina in Act 7 and 8. But if you haven't seen Interstellar, I'll give you a quick summary of the relevant parts. This will have spoilers though, and I highly recommend you watch it. Interstellar is about Cooper, who goes on a space mission that's meant to save the human race. It switches POV between him and his daughter Murphy, who he left behind as a child in order to take on the mission. Murphy's POV follows her growing up and dedicating her life to the same mission, but as a physicist trying to solve the final equation that would make the mission, her father's mission, a success on the theoretical end. Decades later, her father hasn't returned and she hasn't solved it, but several clues throughout her life keep haunting her. As a child, she believed there was a ghost in her bedroom that was manipulating her books and the dust in her room to send her messages. Her watch has its second hand stuck and keeps twitching weirdly. It's later revealed that Cooper ends up in a higher dimension that allows him to visit moments in Murphy's life and manipulate gravity to send her messages. Using gravity to push her books, using gravity to push and pull dust, and using gravity to twitch the watch's second hand into Morse code to pass on the data that will solve her problem. Gravity becomes his means of communication as a force that transcends space and time. But the more emotional and humanistic theme of this film is that Cooper's love for his daughter is equally, if not more, transcendent, because it's what connects him to those specific moments in time and guides how he decides to interact with her in the first place. His desire to speak with her, even through dimensions, and even his regret of leaving her, is what leads his daughter to solve the final problem and eventually rescue her father from being lost in space, as well as save the entire human race. This was an interesting take on a time travel trope because Cooper wasn't time traveling in the traditional sense, but he found a way to affect moments in the past from another dimension. Having played Genshin Impact for over 4 years at this point, I definitely did not expect them to borrow plot points from Interstellar, of all films, just because Genshin has always struck me as leaning towards fantasy than sci-fi. But of course, those two don't have to be mutually exclusive, and one can argue that Genshin at its core is a sci-fi story presented in fantasy clothing. And I have to say that Genshin actually integrated the Interstellar plot remarkably well in this Nod Krai chapter. At the end of Act 6, Columbina escapes Dottore by entering the moon's reflection, leaving us waiting for 6 weeks to find out what the hell that actually means. As it turns out, the moon's reflection is a space where time flows backwards, starting from Columbina's entry all the way back to when the space was created. And as we discover later on, the space was created to imprison the 3 moon sisters, which, with Columbina being a moon goddess herself, meant that she had very little chance of ever leaving as well. But something mysterious happens while Columbina is in there. She gets pulled towards certain moments in Tevat's space-time and finds that she can interact with things there. She pulls the tarot card during Barbalot's reading, she touches Traveler's shoulder, she leaves writing on a wall only to be destroyed concerned by moonlight, she pokes out books for Traveler and Flynn's to use for research. She protects them even from a fatal blow. Each time, the golden sheen of Kuvaki is present because Columbina is able to manipulate it to a degree that's very unique to her. Eventually, a key moment reveals the common thread among all these instances. Columbina realizes that she must create Luanatar with a piece of her soul to eventually communicate her plan to her friends. In doing so, she also puts part of her soul in Luanatar, which later serves as an anchor to draw Columbina from the moon's reflection to those specific moments that she visited. This entire reveal was, in my opinion, set up very well. Throughout the acts of Nod Krai, even from the very beginning, the characters had been noticing a mysterious force helping them at crucial points throughout their journey. They kept chalking this up to a hidden or secret ally, but no one could figure out who or what it was, with traces of Kuvaki being the only clue. To parallel Interstellar, Kuvaki became like Interstellar's gravity. It was the force through which Columbina was able to interact with Tevat's real space-time. And although Luanatar's presence in those select moments can be considered arbitrary, Genshin used Luanatar to provide a more concrete explanation for Columbina returning to those moments in particular, rather than to simply base it on pivotal emotional moments like Interstellar did. Also, this isn't super relevant, but I found it cool that the moon's reflection was someone's creation, Nibelung specifically, and Interstellar's parallel was that the dimension the dad was stuck in was created by higher beings as well. Or rather, higher humans. Props to Genshin for setting that one up really neatly. Now, what actually blew my mind was how they took that concept a step further and used it to explain a very fundamental feature of Tevat, or more specifically, of Nod Krai. When Columbina finally meets her moon sisters at the end of the moon's reflection, she tells them of her interactions with Tevat's spacetime via Kuvaki, which Columbina explains is a type of elemental energy unique to Nod Krai. The moon goddesses don't know what Kuvaki is, claiming that, as far as they were aware, the elemental energy in Nod Krai was no different from what was present in the rest of Tevat, which is really odd because most elemental forces in Tevat have been around since forever, and Kuvaki should have been no exception. Fast forward to Columbina revealing her escape plan from Moon Prison. To leave, she has to essentially die. And in doing so, she turns her body into moonlight and pours it over Nod Krai to protect the land in the form of Kuvaki. That's like if the dad in Interstellar turned out to be the inventor of gravity, which obviously in pure sci-fi would be a reach of interstellar proportions. But Tevat has its own laws, and apparently this is one of them. Anyway, some of you might have thought that this was a very convenient explanation for the origin of Kuvaki. The character that uses it the most turns out to be the one who creates it in the first place. And well, that's true. If you paid attention to Columbina's internal character development, her choice to become Kuvaki is actually a well-earned one. Columbina's main internal conflict is that she constantly feels that she has nothing or no one to call home, except perhaps the moon, since she's a moon goddess. More than that, she also constantly feels used. The Frost Moon Scions worshipped her as their moon maiden and constantly asked her for favors and wishes. She got sick of that and accepted the Tsaritsa's invitation to join the Fatui, but that also became very clearly transactional. So after fulfilling what the Tsaritsa required of her, Columbina decided to leave the Fatui and return to Nod Krai, where she eventually just wanted to go live alone on the moon with her Kuhenki, the moon goddess equivalent of becoming an old cat lady. But throughout our time in Nod Krai, Traveler, along with Lauma, made a consistent effort to befriend Columbina. The other characters in the Nod Krai cast also grew their own attachments towards Columbina, to the extent that 6 acts in, Columbina considered all of them her friends. During that time, Traveler and Lauma would also encourage or invite Columbina to come out and see Nod Krai, inconspicuously for the most part, so that Columbina could be more of an observer and not get caught up in any unwanted goddess worship. This all culminated in Columbina participating in the Moon Prayer Night Festival meant to honor their moon goddess. And here she created warm and lasting memories with her friends and celebrated alongside the Nod Krai people for a night. Over the course of Columbina's arc, she went from feeling resentful towards Nod Krai to choosing it as her homeland. Much like how she initially didn't feel any attachment towards her name Columbina, she eventually chose it it as her true name and identity. Although she decides to reside in the moon at the end of the finale, Columbina says in her own voice line that she considers Nod Krai an additional home and loves it so much that she used her body to protect the whole of Nod Krai as elemental energy. Just as it was a father's love that allowed Cooper to transcend space and time and communicate with his daughter, it was Columbina's love for her chosen homeland that brought about her choice to scatter her body there, which ended up being a crucial part of the solution to defeat Dottore, this chapter's main villain. Now, it would be remiss to forget that the rest of the Nod Krai cast contributed just as much to Columbina's resurrection, just as we can't forget the role that Murphy in Interstellar played in solving the equation and eventually rescuing her dad. In Interstellar, Cooper decides that the best way to communicate the crucial data would be through Morse code via the second hand of his daughter's watch that she leaves in her bedroom for years. By doing this, Cooper puts his faith in two things: that Murphy will successfully understand and interpret the data, but more importantly, that Murphy will come back and get the watch from her bedroom eventually. The former is easy. Cooper knows his daughter is incredibly smart, but Cooper's companion bot is skeptical of the latter. "How do you know she'll come back for the watch?" it asks. "Because I gave it to her," Cooper says. Cooper trusts that Murphy, despite growing up without her father all these years, still loves him enough to return for that watch, a memento of his. In Genshin, everyone else in the Nod Krai cast is working overtime to figure out how to save Columbina, and together they decode all the clues that Columbina leaves for them. Her writing on the wall, which Nefer and Flint's find, Luanatar, which Nefer uses to scry into Columbina's soul and figure out her plan, and placing the Trilune Authority on the Frost Moon so that Sandrone's world formula can successfully combine all of Columbina's parts to resurrect her. It works out, both in Interstellar and in Genshin. Human connection is a two-way street, and it's incredibly strong bonds like those that, in my opinion, are peak power of love and friendship, because it allowed them to achieve the impossible against all odds. While that last part may be too cheesy for your taste, depending on how practical you want to be about Genshin's plot, I at least wanted to assert that I believe Genshin did a great job of writing Columbina's character conflict and development to allow her space-time altering actions to have real emotional weight behind them. In each moment of her interacting with Tevat's space-time, she simply was trying to help and protect her friends. She didn't start by devising a plan to split her being into pieces as soon as she entered the moon's reflection. Even when she didn't know exactly what was going on, her desire to reach her friends and return to them came first and foremost. The entire explanation of her creating Luanatar as an anchor and turning her body into Kovaki came as a natural result of her decisions and emotions. Of course, there's a lot to be commended regarding Genshin's execution of the Nod Krai arc, and some to be criticized, what with all the moving pieces and subplots they built into the entire thing. But I just wanted to highlight this part in particular because of how well it was set up and how satisfying the payoff was, and that it mirrored the plot of one of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time. That's going to be all for this video. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the Nod Krai chapter, and maybe what your favorite or least favorite part of it was. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you soon. Take care.